When you think farming, you probably think growing food out in a field, but the reality is when you are farming, you can spend just as much time selling your food as you do growing it.
Back when we were just home gardeners, we hadn't started the farm business yet, we didn't even realize this at all. We went and we visited our friend Scott Hebert at Flavorful Farms, and he gave us the lowdown. He gave us a tour of his field, which was amazing and beautiful, and then he was like, come on, you gotta see my sink, my washing station, and he talked about how important it was that all of that was set up as efficiently as possible, and I realized you spend as much time in front of a sink, basically being a dishwasher when you're a farmer, as you do actually out in the field. It was my first time I realized so much of what you do as a farmer is processing those vegetables for sale. This is something that, as a home gardener, we never really needed to do, but it's absolutely essential when you're a business.
So the concept behind can you grow it or can you sell it is one of those sides of the equation is always going to limit you. If you can't grow something but you can sell lots of it, that's all you're going to do. If you can't sell something but you can grow lots of it, that's all you're going to sell. So one of those sides of the equation is always going to limit you, and you have to nurture both sides to slowly grow them at similar paces so you can expand your farm business.
We feel as beginning farmers, and also as people looking at farmers wanting to start it themselves, people don't realize how much that sell it side is absolutely essential. People just think about the growing. And, basically, you're not a farmer, you're not a business until you sell something. You can grow all the food in the world, but until you get that first sale, it's, you're just growing.
Crop plans versus sales plans. We realized that before we built our crop plan, we had to figure out what our sales plan was. So we had to do the research to figure out what would sell in our area before we could sketch out, the time frames for plantings and, which beds are going to have what.
Or even buying the seeds.
Yeah. So the first step that we did was develop a sales plan and figure out what we could sell.
Before we started the farm, we had been doing some sales at farmers markets for, a variety of different business ideas. And we came up with this theory that we think is genius and 100% right, which is the $20 theory. Basically, everyone comes to a market with a $20 bill in their pocket. And the biggest hurdle is getting them to just pull that out of their wallets. Once they have it out, it's an easy step to make sure they spend the entire bill. We decided $20 is kind of like the perfect price point. People are willing to spend that whole bill. So when we went to make our crop plan, we based it on a sales plan that had people spending $20 with us. We wanted to make sure that we had enough options that someone could come to our stand, pull that $20 bill out of their pocket and spend it all without struggling to, be able to fill a bag with enough options. So we made sure enough options at all times of the year, they could spend that $20, and then easy, right? You only need a handful of customers spending the $20, no problem.
Except people shop differently for food. Lots of people want to spend that $20, but they want to spread it over all the different local farms that are at that farmer's market. They grab the lettuce from here and the tomatoes from there to support local businesses, which is great. But it can make the transactions very small for us so we were hoping to get $15, $20 transactions as the regular, and in reality the average transaction is more like a $5 or we have lots of $3 transactions where you're only selling one item to a customer, and it feels like a missed opportunity. But those people are still supporting local. They're still going home
spending the 20.
Yeah. So the concept is there, but it's not. It was missing something.
The theory still works though, and we are still sticking with the being able to spend the $20 across the entire season. Because on our farm, when people come to our farm, they buy that $20 every time, or even more.
Yeah.
Having those options when they don't have to spread the money across all the farms at the farmer's market, when they just need to spend that money with us, having that, crop plan that came out of the sales plan has been very effective. And, that's something we want to cultivate more. We want to cultivate more of that on-farm sales where we have that higher average and, the easy sales. Another common mistake we see lots of people do is they don't understand how much it costs to sell. There is a very real cost to go to the farmer's market and to sell things that you don't necessarily have to pay for when you are selling wholesale.
If you can't sell lots, you can't grow lots. So wholesale selling is a great way to scale up the size of your business so that you can start, utilizing some efficiencies and some economies of scale. We currently only sell retail to customers. We're open to wholesale selling, but we just haven't gotten to that point yet where we're chasing after wholesale customers.
We currently can't grow it. It may feel like you're losing a lot of money when you sell something at wholesale, when you're selling it for 30% off your retail price, 50% off your retail price. But for us, when we go and we crunch the numbers, a lot of the times it's exactly the same profit. The perfect example is our farmer's market. The farmer's market is a very long day. And the reality of long days is those are expensive days.
That's a lot of my labor, and even though we're not necessarily taking an hourly wage exactly, we have to realize that labor has a value, both monetary and opportunity cost.
To figure out what the market actually costs us, I crunch the numbers based on the labor being a minimum wage employee. When we do those numbers, we say $20 because there also is some costs above the wage to employing someone. So you can't actually crunch those numbers just based on what you personally would be paid at minimum wage because there are employee costs as well. So $20. The market is an 8-hour day or even more.
Yeah.
So at $20, that is $160 of labor. And then the market fee is $40. So our farmer's market cost is $200. If we go down to the farmer's market and we sell $400 worth of product, we could have sold that at a 50% discount wholesale and made the same amount of money. We have been doing, let's say an $800 market. So that means that when you take off that $200, when you crunch the math, we could be wholesaling at 25% off our retail prices and making the same amount of money. We are going to continue with the retail even though it seems expensive at this point, because our goal is that the farmer's market is going to be doing $1,000, $1,500.
Yeah.
And now when you hit those numbers, the percentage that it costs for that employee time, that market fee is starting to get really low, and it's starting to make a lot of sense compared to wholesale. You can't sell something wholesale for a 10% discount on retail, but once you get your numbers up high enough, you can definitely be making that kind of money. Though another thing to consider is you are going to be limited at a certain point by how much work one employee can do, right? And then you need to crunch the numbers again with a second employee. Now we're $320. You got to play with those percentages to figure out what is worth it for you. We are very focused on targeting our ideal customer. Rather than building customers that aren't a good fit for us now, we want to build those customers we want to keep going into the future. Our ideal customer isn't interested in price comparison shopping.
They want to spend $20 a week on veggies. They want to support local farms.
Our ideal customer cares about the fact we don't use pesticides.
And they want to buy a bouquet every other week or so.
They think that getting to shop on the farm is a perk, and they don't think it's a hassle and want delivery.
Basically, we want to cultivate a strong base of our ideal customers instead of spreading ourselves thin, chasing after, every possible sales avenue, every way we can sell our food, and every single customer in Kelowna, right? We just want to focus on our ideal customers because in the long range, they will be the ones who make our business sustainable and profitable.
A perfect example is we have too many flowers. And you all send us amazing ideas. You all are telling us we should try to sell them to florists, we should offer delivery, all these options that are things that we could do, but those are not our ideal customers. So we really don't want to spend our time getting those customers into our business. So the option that we've taken instead is those leftover flowers that would normally get thrown onto the compost pile. We've started drying them. We dry them, we put them away, and then come the off season when we no longer have fresh flowers available, we now have dried flowers available to offer to that ideal customer.
Yeah.
Rather than getting rid of those flowers in a way that we don't really want to do in the future, we can dry them. We can now be offering more value to that ideal customer who wants to come to the farm and still get those flowers every now and then. Now they're just dried.
Yeah, if we were to try to sell to a florist, then in the long term, we'd be competing on price with farms that are 10 acres or 20 acres or something, and have these massive fields where they can have all of this infrastructure to make things really efficient. And so that's just a long-term losing proposition to us. And for delivery to customers, that's just something that we personally don't want to do because we don't really like driving around the city too much. We like to just be on property. So that's a personal lifestyle choice that we just don't offer delivery.
And it's expensive. Mm-hmm. Delivery takes up a huge amount of time. And honestly, people have come to think that delivery should be free. So, we'd rather just have them come to us.
Yeah.
One of our, biggest guiding principles is that you need to value your time. Time is probably one of your most finite resources here on the farm. There's only so much of it, and you need to be careful where you're spending it.
Lots of people start farms for reasons that aren't about, making money. They're kind of loftier ideals. And one of the realities about farming is it is a business, and you have to make money doing it. Otherwise, you can't continue to pursue those loftier goals, right? So you have to be able to make money, and some people go into it and they charge prices that are so low that there's no way that you could ever be profitable and you could ever, value your time at those prices. So they're just kind of setting themselves up to fail, and you have to price in your time and value your time in everything you do, in all your equations, so that you have prices that reflect you being able to make money and provide yourself a living so you can keep doing this thing that you feel is very important.
So many people are working for free. I hear it said all the time, I can't afford for an employee to come and help me. I can't afford to cover their wage. And the reality is, if you can't pay an employee to do what you are doing, then that means you are not paying yourself what you need to pay that employee. And, it's a hard thing to have to sit down and crunch those numbers because it means maybe you can't do what you're doing. But, being focused on these numbers, going back to what we were saying about the cost of wholesale, the cost of retail, or even further back into you need to have that sales plan that guides your crop plan. You need to understand your numbers so that you can farm, you can sustain your business.
So can you grow it? Can you sell it? This year, we are working on expanding both sides of that equation. You can't bring one up without bringing the other one up as well. We're expanding the farm, we're opening up new ground for farm beds, and we're also bringing in lots more greenhouse space so that we can grow more food at the shoulder seasons, earlier and later in the season. But in having more food and also an employee, we have to pick up the ability to sell more. So we're doing more markets, we're doing an extra market every week, and we're going to be selling more on our roadside as well, probably.
We feel like the focus we've been giving the last few years on selling is going to make a really strong, stable base for the business into the future now that we can really start thinking about expanding the growing. We feel like in the beginning you really need to focus on that selling point. That's kind of why we're stressing it in this video.
Yeah, the can you grow it, can you sell it is more about giving the sales side of things equal footing to the growing side, right? It's not really a discussion about growing because growing is so regional,
and so easy. So many people think that the hard part of being a farmer is growing, and the reality is growing is so easy. It's really the selling that is the struggle.
This is what happens when we try to film a video without our cats.